Picture yourself in a courtroom, your heart pounding like a thunderstorm, every whisper slicing through your soul. A corrupt cop stands in the shadows, his smirk dripping with arrogance, certain he's crushed anyone who dared challenge him. He thinks you're just another face, easy to bury. But what happens when the woman he underestimated unveils a secret so explosive it could burn his empire to ashes? Stay with us for a story of bravery, betrayal, and justice so riveting, you'll be hooked until the very last word. The Crestview County Courthouse, a granite relic in America's Rust Belt, was a pressure cooker of tension. Its oak-paneled walls and soaring ceilings had witnessed countless dramas. But today, the air was electric with anticipation. Spectators crammed the benches, reporters jotting furiously, locals trading hushed theories, families clutching one another in nervous solidarity. At the back, Officer Samuel "Sam" Kessler stood like a monument to power, his Navy police uniform pressed to perfection, his sharp blue eyes glinting with a confidence that teetered on menace. Kessler was Crestview's untouchable, a deputy chief who'd ruled the city's streets for nearly 2 decades through charm, intimidation, and whispers of backroom deals. His gaze settled on the woman at the plaintiff's table, a black woman in her early 40s, dressed in a tailored olive green suit, her hair swept into a sleek chignon that framed her composed face. Dr. Aisha Reynolds, the docket read. Kessler's lips curled into a sneer. "These people always stir trouble," he muttered, his voice carrying just enough to sting the front rows. The racial barb sparked gasps, and the judge, Margaret Ellison, a stern woman with silver hair and a reputation for fairness, froze, her gavel poised mid-air. Aisha didn't react. She adjusted a stack of papers with the precision of a surgeon, her expression calm but unyielding, her dark eyes steady as stone. Then, with a slow, almost ceremonial grace, she reached into her leather briefcase and withdrew a slim ID wallet. As she flipped it open, the gold-embossed seal of the U.S. Department of Justice gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a beacon that silenced the courtroom. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Kessler's sneer vanished, his face draining of color as Aisha's gaze locked onto his, piercing and unrelenting. Whispers erupted. "Who is she? What's that badge?" In that single seismic moment, the man who'd silenced Crestview's dissenters with a glance realized he'd misjudged his opponent, and the reckoning was coming. The night before, Aisha had barely slept. She'd lain awake in her aunt's bungalow on Crestview's south side, the faint hum of distant steel mills seeping through the walls like a heartbeat of the city. Moonlight spilled through lace curtains, illuminating a cluttered desk piled with legal journals, a laptop, and a framed photo of her late uncle, Pastor James Reynolds, standing proudly in his church robes, his warm smile frozen in time. Aisha's chest tightened as memories flooded back. She was 9, maybe 10, sitting on the creaky steps of his church, her sneakers scuffing the peeling paint. James, tall and steady, had knelt beside her, his voice like gospel. "Justice isn't something they hand you, Aisha," he'd said, his eyes bright with conviction. "It's something you fight for, something you take." That day, he'd faced down a crooked cop who'd harassed a local shopkeeper, his courage a quiet fire that lit something in her soul. "One day, you'll carry this fight," he'd told her, ruffling her hair. She'd laughed, not understanding, not yet. James's death 12 years ago had shattered that innocence. The police, under Kessler's oversight, called it a carjacking gone wrong, a random tragedy in Crestview's rough north side. But the details never added up. No witnesses, no stolen goods recovered, a lone bystander who recanted under pressure. Aisha, then a young attorney fresh out of law school, had pushed for answers, filing requests, calling detectives. Doors slammed shut, voices turned cold. "Let it go, kid," one officer had snapped, Kessler's signature on the closed case file. The loss drove Aisha to the DOJ, where she honed her skills in the criminal division, dismantling corrupt systems, mayors, judges, police chiefs, who thought themselves untouchable. Each victory was a step toward healing, but Crestview's wound remained open. Now she was back, officially to care for her aunt, Evelyn, whose heart condition had worsened. Unofficially, she was here to protect her family and unearth the truth about her uncle's death and Kessler's hand in burying it. Aisha wasn't just a concerned niece. She was a senior prosecutor specializing in public corruption, a secret she'd guarded carefully even from Evelyn. Her return to Crestview 5 months ago had been quiet. Her cover as Dr. Reynolds suggesting academia, not a federal attorney with access to FBI databases and high-level contacts. Her current fight was a protective order against the Steel Syndicate, a gang that had sunk its claws into Crestview's poorest neighborhoods, running drugs, extortion rackets, and fear. Evelyn, a retired school teacher and community pillar, had organized a neighborhood watch to report the syndicate's crimes, painting a target on her back. Aisha's cousin, 17-year-old Marcus, a bright high school senior with dreams of studying journalism, had drawn their wrath after posting about the gang's intimidation on social media, a thread that went viral locally before threats forced him to delete it. The protective order was meant to shield them, but Aisha's DOJ instincts screamed that the syndicate's audacity wasn't just criminal, it was enabled. Whispers tied Kessler to the gang, leaked raid schedules, buried complaints, a shiny new boat that screamed dirty money. If true, he wasn't just a crooked cop. He was the architect of Crestview's decay, and Aisha was here to bring him down. She rose at dawn, the weight of the day pressing on her. In Evelyn's kitchen, the smell of oatmeal and coffee grounded her. Evelyn sat at the table, a quilt over her lap, her frail frame belying a mind still sharp as ever. Her eyes, warm but probing, studied Aisha. "You're up early," Evelyn said, her voice soft but heavy with concern. "That court business eating at you?" Aisha poured coffee, forcing a small smile. "Protective order hearing today. I need to be sharp." Evelyn's brow creased, worry etching deeper lines. "You're carrying James's fight, Aisha. I see his fire in you, but this city, it's got a way of breaking folks who push too hard." Aisha sat across from her, squeezing her aunt's hand, the skin cool and thin. "I'm not breaking, Aunt Evelyn. I've got you, Marcus, and tools they don't expect. I'll be careful." Evelyn's gaze softened, but her voice held a tremor. "Your uncle always said justice is a marathon, not a sprint. Promise you'll pace yourself, child." "I promise," Aisha said, but as she spoke, she knew pacing wasn't an option. The syndicate's threats were escalating. Graffiti on Evelyn's garage reading, "Snitches die," anonymous voicemails hissing Marcus's name, a slashed backpack left on their porch. Aisha's protective order was a shield, but her real mission was to expose Kessler's corruption and dismantle the system he upheld. The stakes were personal, and failure wasn't a choice. She dressed with care, a charcoal blazer, cream blouse, and low heels, her appearance calculated to blend in. Crestview knew her as doctor. Reynolds, not a prosecutor who'd stared down senators and mob lawyers in D.C. As she grabbed her briefcase, Marcus shuffled into the kitchen, his hoodie loose, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He'd been quieter lately, the weight of the threats pressing on him. "You okay, kid?" Aisha asked, softening her voice. Marcus shrugged, grabbing a muffin. "Yeah, just those texts keep coming." "Shut up or you're done." "I deleted my account, but it's like they're watching." Aisha's heart twisted. She crossed the room, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, Marcus. I'm handling this. You focus on school, on your dreams. We're tougher than they think." He looked up, his eyes searching hers, a flicker of his old spark returning. "Like Grandpa James tough?" Aisha smiled despite the ache. "Exactly like him." "We've got this." Marcus nodded, a small gesture, but it fueled her resolve. She hugged him briefly, then headed out, the morning air sharp with the bite of early fall. The courthouse stood like a weathered sentinel, its columns scarred by decades of rust-belt winters. Aisha climbed the steps, passing a small group of protesters holding signs. "Cops protect gangs, not us." Their chants echoed her own anger, and she offered a quiet nod of solidarity. Inside, the marble lobby buzzed with chaos. Attorneys barking into phones, defendants pacing nervously, clerks juggling files under fluorescent glare. Aisha placed her briefcase on the security conveyor belt, her DOJ badge tucked in a hidden pocket. The guard, a grizzled man with a faded tattoo, glanced at her ID. "Reynolds, you Evelyn's niece?" he asked, his tone curious but guarded. "Yes, sir," Aisha replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Heard about the syndicate mess. Watch yourself." His words were kind, but a flicker of unease in his eyes told her Crestview's history still shadowed her family's name. Reverence from some, resentment from others. She passed through the metal detector and headed for courtroom 4B, her heels clicking rhythmically on the polished floor. Along the way, she spotted Kessler. He leaned against a wall, chatting with a young officer, his posture relaxed, but his eyes scanning like a predator's. At 48, Kessler was magnetic, tall, broad-shouldered, with a military haircut and a smile that could charm a jury or chill a witness. His DOJ file was a catalog of red flags, complaints of coercion dismissed, a whistleblower's report vanished, bank deposits that didn't match his salary. When their eyes met, his smile tightened, a flicker of assessment crossing his face. He approached, his boots echoing in the quiet hallway. "Dr. Reynolds," he said, drawling the title with faint mockery. "You lost? This ain't a classroom." Aisha held his stare, her voice calm but edged. "I'm here for courtroom 4B, officer. I know my way." Kessler chuckled, stepping closer, his badge catching the light. "Filing papers for your aunt? Word of advice, courts don't take kindly to outsiders stirring the pot. Stick to your studies." Aisha's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure, years of courtroom battle steadying her. "I'm no outsider, officer. I was born here, and I don't stir pots. I clean them." She moved to step around him, but he shifted, blocking her path. A few passers-by glanced over, clerks, a lawyer, sensing the tension like static in the air. "Crestview's a small town," Kessler said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, laced with menace. "We handle our own problems. Folks who dig too deep end up buried." Aisha met his gaze, unflinching, her voice low but firm. "Noted. But I've got a good shovel and I know how to dig." She sidestepped him, her heart racing but her stride steady as she moved down the hall. Kessler's stare burned into her back, but she didn't falter. She'd faced down senators and mob lawyers in D.C. A small-town cop didn't scare her, but Kessler wasn't just a cop. He was a system woven into Crestview's fabric, and dismantling him would take everything she had. Courtroom 4B was a blend of faded grandeur and wear. Polished wood paneling scarred by time, scuffed floors bearing the weight of countless footsteps, a judge's bench that loomed like a fortress. Judge Ellison presided, her reputation for fairness tempered by a tendency to trust police testimony, especially from men like Kessler. Aisha took a seat near the front, watching the morning's cases unfold. A petty theft charge, a probation violation, a custody dispute. Each was a reminder of justice's fragility, how easily it could bend under pressure. When her name was called, she rose, her briefcase heavy with evidence, her mind sharp with purpose. "Dr. Aisha Reynolds, you're requesting a protective order," Judge Ellison said, peering over her glasses, her voice measured but commanding. "Your petition cites threats by the Steel Syndicate against your aunt, Evelyn Reynolds, and your cousin, Marcus Reynolds. The respondents haven't appeared. Present your case." Aisha stood at the podium, her voice clear and steady, each word deliberate. "Your Honor, my family has been targeted by the Steel Syndicate for months. My aunt organized a community watch to report their extortion rackets, and my cousin was attacked after exposing their intimidation online. I've submitted text messages threatening violence, voicemails explicitly naming my aunt, photographs of vandalism, silence or else, spray painted on our garage. The police were notified, but no arrests have been made despite clear evidence." Ellison flipped through the file, her brow furrowing as she studied the documents. "This is compelling. Officer Kessler, you oversaw the initial complaint. Why no progress?" Kessler, who'd slipped into the courtroom moments earlier, stepped forward, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Your Honor, we investigated thoroughly, but the evidence was inconclusive. No direct link to the syndicate was established. We advised Dr. Reynolds to pursue legal remedies." His tone was polished, professional, but his glance at Aisha carried a faint challenge, almost mocking. Aisha's jaw clenched. She'd provided the police with a voicemail explicitly naming the syndicate's leader, Darius Hawk Morgan, threatening Evelyn if she kept snitching. Kessler's dismissal was a lie, a deliberate one. "Your Honor," she said, her voice firm but controlled, "the voicemail I submitted identifies Hawk Morgan by name, threatening my aunt's life if she continued reporting to authorities. I gave it to the police 8 weeks ago. Why was it ignored?" Ellison's eyes narrowed, her gaze shifting to Kessler. "Officer, explain." Kessler shifted his weight, his charm faltering for a fraction of a second. "Your Honor, we receive dozens of threats weekly. We prioritize cases with solid, actionable leads. This one didn't meet that threshold." The judge studied him, her expression unreadable, then turned back to Aisha. "Dr. Reynolds, I'm granting a temporary protective order based on the evidence presented. A full hearing will be scheduled in 10 weeks. Submit any additional evidence by then." Relief flooded Aisha, but frustration simmered beneath it. The order was a start, a thin shield for Evelyn and Marcus, but Kessler's stonewalling confirmed her worst fears. He wasn't just negligent, he was complicit. She thanked the judge, gathered her papers with steady hands, and headed for the exit, her mind already racing toward the next step. Kessler was waiting in the hallway, his arms crossed, his expression a mix of irritation and amusement, like a cat toying with a mouse. "Got your little paper shield," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "Think it'll stop the syndicate? You're out of your league, Professor." Aisha faced him, her voice calm but edged with steel. "I'm exactly where I need to be, officer, and I don't play to lose." She held his gaze a moment longer, letting her words sink in, then walked away. Kessler's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. He didn't know it yet, but Aisha was building a case that would unravel his world. In a quiet alcove near the courthouse exit, Aisha leaned against a cool marble wall, closing her eyes to steady her breathing. Memories of her uncle surged like a tide. At 18, she'd sat in his church, the pews packed with neighbors, his voice rising as he preached about justice as a calling, not a gift. "They'll tell you to stay quiet," he'd said, his eyes sweeping the congregation, "but silence is surrender, and we don't surrender." His activism, organizing boycotts, challenging crooked landlords, calling out police brutality, had made him enemies. A month before his death, he'd told Aisha about threats, his voice calm but heavy. "Some folks don't like the light, baby girl, but we keep shining it." She'd been too young to grasp the danger then, but the pain of his loss had carved those words into her heart. Kessler, then a rising star in the department, had led the investigation, dismissing evidence of syndicate involvement with a speed that reeked of cover-up. Now, facing his arrogance in the hallway, Aisha felt the same shadow of corruption her uncle had fought, a shadow she was determined to dispel. At the clerk's office, Aisha confirmed the hearing date and probed for insights on Ellison's rulings. The clerk, a young man named Jamal with quick eyes and a harried air, was helpful, but cautious. "Judge is tough but fair," he said, stamping her paperwork. "She leans on cops like Kessler for gang cases. He's got a way of swaying her." Aisha handed him a card, not her DOJ card, but one with her name and a secure email, keeping her cover intact. "If anything shifts, let me know." She paused, lowering her voice. "Does Kessler have pull here?" Jamal glanced around, his voice dropping. "He's got pull everywhere. Runs the department like his personal kingdom. Watch your back, Doctor." Reynolds. His warning, though brief, was a thread Aisha tucked away, a hint of the web she needed to unravel. That afternoon, Aisha drove to a coffee shop downtown, a cozy spot with exposed brick walls and the hum of espresso machines. She met Marcus Tate, an old high school friend, now a reporter for the Crestview Tribune, known for his dogged exposés on local corruption. Tate, wiry with a restless energy, slid into the booth across from her, his grin sharp but warm. "Aisha Reynolds, back in Crestview and stirring up trouble," he teased, sipping his cappuccino. "What's the play?" Aisha leaned in, her voice low. "Kessler. I think he's protecting the Steel Syndicate, tipping them off, burying complaints. My family's caught in the crossfire. You've got ears on the ground. What do you know?" Tate's grin faded, his eyes narrowing as he weighed her words. "Kessler's dirty as they come," he said, voice hushed. "I've heard whispers. Cops say he tips the syndicate about raids, takes their cash to look the other way. A sergeant, Eddie Torres, tried blowing the whistle last year. Good guy, family man. Next thing, he's gone. Transferred, the department said, but nobody's heard from him since. My sources are scared, Aisha. One guy, ex-syndicate, got jumped after talking to me." Aisha's pulse quickened. A missing whistleblower was a lead and a warning. Can you connect me to anyone who'd talk? Someone inside? Tate hesitated, then nodded, scribbling a name on a napkin. Devin Carter, ex-Syndicate 19, works at the community center now. He's skittish, but he might open up if you're careful. Don't mention me. He slid the napkin across, his eyes serious. And Aisha. Kessler's got eyes everywhere. Don't trust anyone. She thanked him, pocketing the napkin, her mind already mapping next steps. Back at Evelyn's house, Aisha spent the evening digging into Kessler's DOJ file via a secure VPN. The glow of her laptop casting shadows across the room. The deeper she went, the uglier it got. Complaints of evidence tampering buried, a whistleblower's report mysteriously deleted, bank deposits that screamed dirty money, $20,000 here, $15,000 there, far beyond a deputy chief's salary. Each piece was a clue, but she needed a smoking gun, something to tie Kessler to the syndicate beyond rumors and shadows. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging, or Evelyn and the kid get hurt. Aisha's blood ran cold, her fingers tightening around the phone. She forwarded the message to a DOJ cyber analyst for tracing, then deleted it, heart pounding. The threat wasn't a shock. It was proof she was hitting a nerve. She glanced at Evelyn, dozing on the couch with a book splayed across her chest, and Marcus, studying at the kitchen table, his headphones on. Their safety was her anchor, and she wouldn't let fear derail her. The next morning, Aisha sat with Marcus before school, the kitchen quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. He'd been withdrawn, the threats weighing heavier each day. She slid a plate of toast toward him, searching his face. "Talk to me, Marcus. How you holding up?" He shrugged, picking at the bread. "It's just a lot. Those texts, the slashed backpack. I feel like they're waiting for me to mess up." His voice cracked, and he looked away, embarrassed. Aisha leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Listen to me, Marcus. Fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're alive and you're fighting. You're not alone in this. I've got your back, and we're tougher than they know." She paused, then added, "You're like your Grandpa James. He never backed down, even when it got heavy. Neither will we." Marcus looked up, his eyes glistening but resolute. "You think I can be like him? Write stuff that matters, like he spoke stuff that mattered?" Aisha smiled, her heart swelling. "I know you can. You're already halfway there." He nodded, a spark of determination breaking through, and for a moment she saw her uncle in him, fierce, unbroken. She hugged him tightly, then sent him off to school, her resolve hardening. Kessler and the syndicate wouldn't touch her family, not if she could help it. 3 days later, Aisha visited the community center, a squat brick building with faded murals and a basketball court out front. Devin Carter was sweeping the gym, his wiry frame tense, a faint scar tracing his cheek. At 19, he carried the weight of a life already too hard, forced into the syndicate as a teen, running drugs to survive, now trying to claw his way out. Aisha approached, her demeanor calm, hiding her DOJ role. "Devin, I'm Aisha Reynolds. Marcus Tate said you might talk. I need to know about Kessler and the Steel Syndicate." Devin froze, his grip tightening on the broom. "Don't know nothing. Talking's a death sentence." Aisha held his gaze, her voice steady. "I can protect you, Devin, but I need the truth. My family's in danger, Evelyn and Marcus Reynolds. You know them. You know what the syndicate does." Devin's eyes flickered with recognition. Evelyn had taught him in middle school, a rare kind voice in a rough world. He glanced at the door, then sighed, rubbing his neck. Kessler's their guy. Meets Hawk Morgan at a warehouse on River Road, first Tuesday every month. Cash for info, raid schedules, snitch names. I saw it once before I got out. They've got a ledger, tracks everything. I was just a kid, man, didn't want that life. He scribbled an address on a scrap of paper, shoving it at her. Burn this after you read it, and don't come back. Aisha nodded, pocketing the note. Thank you, Devin. You're doing the right thing. His fear and his courage stayed with her as she left, the paper burning a hole in her pocket. Using her DOJ contacts, Aisha secured a tiny audio recorder and a camera pin, discreet enough to pass as jewelry. She briefed her supervisor, Assistant Attorney General Elena Rivera, over a secure video call. Rivera, a sharp strategist with a no-nonsense demeanor, was cautious but supportive. You're playing with fire, Aisha, she said, her voice clipped. A confession or that ledger could launch a federal probe, but you're not undercover. If it gets dicey, I'm pulling you. This is my family, Aisha replied, her voice steady. I'm all in. Rivera sighed, approving a backup team of marshals to monitor her remotely. Aisha spent the next day preparing, mapping the River Road warehouse, a rusted hulk on the city's edge. That night, she tailed Kessler, her rental car blending into Crestview's evening traffic. She parked a block from the warehouse, her binoculars trained on the entrance. Kessler arrived at 9:17 p.m., his truck unmistakable. Hawk Morgan joined him, a wiry man with a shaved head and a predator's gait. They exchanged a small package, cash, drugs, or both. Aisha snapped photos, her hands trembling with adrenaline, the camera's shutter a faint whisper in the dark. A syndicate thug emerged from the shadows, his eyes scanning the street. He paused, staring toward her car. Aisha's breath caught, her pulse hammering. She lowered the binoculars, started the engine, and eased away, praying the darkness hid her. The thug didn't follow, but the close call left her shaken. This was proof of contact, but not enough for a conviction. She needed more. Back at home, Aisha sat at her desk, the photos uploaded to a secure drive. She replayed the day's events, her mind snagging on a new lead, Lisa Monroe, a former Crestview detective who'd worked under Kessler a decade ago. Lisa had left the force abruptly after James's death, moving to a nearby town. Aisha remembered her from church, a tough woman with kind eyes who'd slipped her a candy bar during long sermons. If anyone knew Kessler's secrets, it might be her. Aisha found Lisa's number through a DOJ database, hesitating before dialing. Trust was a risk, but she was running out of time. Lisa answered on the third ring, her voice wary but warm. Aisha, Evelyn's niece? Been a long time. I need to talk, Aisha said, keeping it vague. About Kessler. Can we meet? A pause stretched, heavy with caution. Tomorrow, noon. Diner on Route 12. Come alone. The line went dead, and Aisha exhaled, hope and dread tangling in her chest. The diner was a time capsule. Checkered floors, vinyl booths, the smell of grease and pie. Lisa sat in a corner booth, her dark hair streaked with gray, her eyes scanning the room like a cop's even now. She was in her 50s, her frame lean but strong, a faint scar above her eyebrow hinting at old battles. Aisha slid in across from her, ordering coffee to blend in. You look like James, Lisa said, her voice soft but direct. Same fire. What do you want with Kessler? Aisha leaned in, her voice low. He's protecting the Steel Syndicate. My family's getting threats. Evelyn, Marcus, I think he's tied to James's death. What do you know?" Lisa's jaw tightened, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "Kessler's been dirty since I knew him. Back then he was taking syndicate money to bury cases, drug busts, assaults. I saw it, but I was young, scared. Your uncle's case, it broke me. Kessler rushed it, ignored leads. I pushed back, and he threatened my kid. Said she'd get caught in a bad neighborhood if I kept digging. I quit, left town. Couldn't fight him then." Aisha's heart pounded. "Did he kill James?" Lisa's eyes darkened. "I don't know, but he covered it up. Always had a ledger, black notebook, kept it close. If it's still around, it's got everything. Names, dates, payouts." Aisha nodded, her mind racing. "Thank you, Lisa. If you hear anything—" "I won't," Lisa cut in, her voice sharp. "I'm out of this fight, Aisha, for my daughter's sake. Be careful. He's got loyal dogs in the department." She slid a 10 under her mug and left, her warning echoing in Aisha's ears. The ledger was the key, but getting it meant getting closer to Kessler and the syndicate. Aisha devised a plan to provoke Kessler into slipping up. Using her burner phone, she called him, posing as a frightened petitioner, her voice quivering convincingly. "I want to drop the protective order," she said. "I don't want trouble. Can we talk?" Kessler's tone was smug, laced with triumph. "Smart move. Where?" "Lincoln Park, the old bandstand, tomorrow, 11 p.m. The spot was isolated, perfect for a recorded confession, but a gamble with her safety. That night, Aisha sat with Evelyn, the living room soft with lamplight. Evelyn was knitting, her needles clicking rhythmically, but her eyes kept drifting to Aisha, heavy with unspoken worry. "You're carrying too much," Evelyn said suddenly, setting the needles down. "I see it in your eyes, like James, before he was gone." Aisha's throat tightened. She crossed to the couch, sitting beside her aunt, the familiar scent of lavender grounding her. "I'm okay, Aunt Evelyn. I'm just trying to keep us safe." Evelyn took her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "You're more than safe, child. You're fighting for something bigger, but don't lose yourself in it. Promise me that." Aisha nodded, her voice thick. "I promise." But as she hugged Evelyn, she felt the weight of that promise, and the fear that she might not keep it. The next night, Aisha stood under the bandstand's chipped roof in Lincoln Park, the river's murmur masking her racing heartbeat. Her recorder was hidden in her jacket, the camera pin clipped to her scarf, its tiny lens catching the moonlight. Kessler arrived, his silhouette menacing, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You alone?" he barked, his voice rough with suspicion. Aisha nodded, raising her hands to show they were empty. "Just me. I want this over. My family's scared." Kessler stepped closer, his eyes glinting like a wolf's. "You should be. The syndicate doesn't mess around. Drop the order, and maybe they'll ease up." Aisha swallowed, her voice trembling convincingly. "I know you're with them. Tell me it'll stop if I back down." Kessler laughed, a low, cold sound that sent a chill down her spine. "You're clever, I'll give you that. Yeah, I work with the syndicate. They pay better than the city, and I keep their messes quiet. Your family's a problem, but I can call it off. For a price." Aisha's heart pounded, memories of her uncle flooding back, his laugh, his sermons, his life stolen. Rage and triumph surged, but she kept her voice steady. "You're admitting you take their money, protect their drugs?" Kessler's face hardened, but he leaned in, his breath hot. I do what keeps Crestview stable. Cops like me hold this city together. You think your little papers will change that? Keep pushing, and the syndicate won't just scare you, they'll end you." Aisha took a step back, her voice rising firm and clear. "Thank you, officer. I've got what I need. You thought you were the law, Kessler, but I'm justice, and justice never loses." Kessler's eyes widened, rage twisting his features. "You—" He reached for his side, his hand grazing his holster, but headlights flared, cutting through the darkness. 3 SUVs roared into the park, tires screeching, marshals leaping out with weapons drawn. "Federal agents! Hands up!" one shouted, his voice booming. Kessler froze, then bolted, his boots slipping on the grass. A marshal tackled him in the dirt, pinning him as he thrashed, cursing Aisha's name. The cuffs clicked shut, and Kessler's empire began to crumble. A marshal approached Aisha, his face grim but kind. "Dr. Reynolds, you okay? Rivera sent us when your signal spiked." Aisha nodded, her legs shaky, adrenaline still coursing through her. "I'm good. The confession's on tape." The next morning, Crestview's courthouse was a media circus. Kessler's arrest on federal charges, conspiracy, bribery, obstruction, dominated headlines, TV trucks clogging the streets. Aisha sat in the prosecution gallery, flanked by DOJ attorneys, as Kessler was arraigned, his once pristine suit now wrinkled, his face a mask of fury. Judge Ellison, visibly shaken by the recording played in court, denied bail, citing Kessler's clear and present danger to the community. The gallery erupted in cheers and gasps, reporters scrambling to capture the moment. Whispers of "the woman with the gold badge" spread like wildfire, a nickname that clung to Aisha in the days that followed. Outside, reporters swarmed her, microphones thrusting forward. "I'm a DOJ prosecutor," Aisha said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I came to Crestview to protect my family and uncovered systemic corruption. This is a start, not an end." She walked away, her cover blown, but her mission complete, the weight of her uncle's memory lifting slightly with each step. Over the next months, the DOJ dismantled the Steel Syndicate's network with surgical precision. The ledger, found in a safe at Morgan's warehouse, was a bombshell. Hundreds of pages detailing Kessler's payoffs, dates, and even coded references to James's case, hinting at a hit ordered to silence his activism. 3 city officials were indicted, their names splashed across national news. 6 officers linked to Kessler faced charges, and Crestview's mayor resigned in disgrace, his ties to the syndicate exposed by Marcus Tate's viral expose in the Tribune. Marcus, re-inspired by Aisha's fight, poured his heart into the piece, his words sparking protests and calls for reform. The article trended online, shared thousands of times with hashtags like #Justice for Crestview. Aisha testified at Kessler's trial, a grueling 3-week ordeal that gripped the city. She sat in the witness box, the recorder's audio playing for a packed courtroom, Kessler's voice, smug and damning, admitting his crimes. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before convicting him on all counts. As the verdict was read, Aisha glanced at Evelyn and Marcus in the gallery, their faces wet with tears, their hands clasped tightly. Kessler's sentence came down, 18 years in federal prison, his empire reduced to a cautionary tale. A month later, Aisha stood at her uncle's grave, the cemetery quiet under a crimson sunset. The headstone was simple, etched with his name and dates, but to her, it was a monument to a life that had shaped her own. She knelt, tracing the letters, her voice a whisper. "We did it, Uncle James. We took it." Tears fell, but they were lighter now, mingled with pride. Crestview was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but the light her uncle had spoken of was shining brighter, carried by her, by Marcus, by a city waking up. The woman with the gold badge had sparked a reckoning, proving that no one, not even a man like Kessler, was above the law. If this story of courage and justice moved you, share it with a friend. Let's keep the light burning together. Hit like, share, and subscribe. What makes a hero like Aisha? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and join the fight for truth.